What up, everybody? BMF Season 3, Episode 6 started out with two separate funerals going on in Detroit at the same graveyard across the road from each other. One being for BMF member Diesel and one being for Bryant's son, Kevin. But at the conclusion of each funeral, we saw Bryant and T having two completely different mindsets. Bryant had nothing left to lose after the death of his son, was on the warpath, even going as far as looking for smoke at Diesel's funeral, pushing T into the grave. But T left Diesel's funeral with a completely different mindset, one that he needs to make peace. Possibly Bryant shoving T into the grave only added to the wake-up call of attending 5 funerals in 5 days, possibly by letting T know that he could be the one going into the ground next. So T, being sick of all the wars and bodies and wanting to be around to raise his children, called Meech looking for advice. Meech telling Terry that he had to pay the price of being the boss, what T called the price of Charon. Charon is basically a fairy tale about a payment made to a ferryman to transport souls by crossing a river that divides the world of the living with the world of the dead. So T brought this up because of all the bodies that were dropping. But Meech told T to boost his crew's morale by giving them gifts. And we later saw T give his crew Pistons jackets and tickets to a Pistons game. T's next move was to go talk to Henri about a truce as an attempt to make peace and avoid a war that would only lead to more bodies. But while trying to make peace and talk to Henri reasonably, she stabbed at T's foot with her sword and told him that there is no world in that they could coexist and that she plans on wiping BMF completely off the map. Henri refuses to make peace with T because she sees BMF as snakes in the ground. This is what she said when she first met T as Henri was introduced in episode 2. Ironically, Remy Ransom said the same thing about Meech in episode 6. In addition to that, Henri's cousin Twan was killed when BMF attempted to rob the ambulance that was making the delivery of Henri's shipment. Either though, there's a chance that Henri found out that Bryant was who finished Twan off because they were blaming him for Twan's death in episode 5. But regardless, she also holds BMF responsible because if they didn't try to rob her shipment, her cousin would still be alive. Also, she had a problem with T because he had discussed buying off her but never did because Loco found Meech. And either though most people in the game would understand and not really have a problem with it, Henri, being an entitled rich kid, took offense to it. As well as the fact that she has a problem with T calling himself the king of Detroit. While T was pursuing peace, like I said to start the video, Bryant was pursuing war and went gunning for Henri, John Wick style, busting into her spot and knocking a couple guys out on his way in, looking like Kevin's cartoon character Bruiser in real life, only to reach Henri's office and have Blaze and Henri's cousin put their guns to Bryant's head. So Bryant could have took Henri out, but it would have cost him his own life as well. This was after Bryant had nothing more to lose after being fired from the police force. So instead of taking Henri out, he decided to let her live, and because of that, Blaze taught Bryant a lesson by knocking him out and dropping him off in the middle of nowhere. And that was the last we saw of Bryant in episode 6. But Terry, really bothered by all the war and the violence going on, had a nightmare about Markeisha getting shot up. When he woke up, he told Markeisha about his problems with Henri. And Markeisha let T know that Henri was a second-generation dealer and that he should go over her head to her pops. Also explaining to T exactly who Blaze is. And I don't know how T keeps forgetting about this because Sterling already gave T all the info on Henri and Blaze in episode 3. But T keeps forgetting this, even initially thinking Markeisha was responsible for the whole CPS situation. But T then went to talk to Blaze to see if he could talk some sense into Henrietta. Blaze let T know from the jump that he heard a lot about BMF and he respected their business model, how they're non-violent and simply about making money. During this conversation, Blaze asked Terry about a particular artist that T cared nothing about. And Blaze was unhappy that much like Henri, T had no interest in those type of things. Possibly Blaze seeing T as a son he never had. Then he went on to tell T that the politics of family were messy, but he would try to talk to Henri. Then he extended his hand out to T and showed respect because T conducted himself like a man, something that Blaze appreciated. But when Blaze went to talk to Henri about making peace with T, like he said, the politics of family is complicated because the whole conversation started out with Blaze not accepting Henri for who she is. Then he let her know that killing a cop is messing up their whole business model that he established, and that the cops were no longer going to be looking the other way on their business deals, and they were no longer going to be given exclusive access to supplying political events. But Blaze's business model is something Henri has no respect for and cares nothing about, as she's trying to run things her own way. But when Blaze went on to tell Henri to make peace with T, he even threatened her by saying if she doesn't make peace, that their arrangement may be coming to an end. This is the arrangement of Blaze giving Henri her own crew to run. He also low-key threatened Henri by telling her that she doesn't want to lose another cousin. But when Blaze left, Henri and her cousin went on to talk about how T and Diz were looking at each other at the gambling spot. So Henri wasn't able to let things go like Blaze told her to because of the fact she had a Judas in the camp. And understandably so, she had to demonstrate. Lighting Diz on fire with a flamethrower at the end of the episode, only adding more fuel to the fire of the war with BMF. So it'll be very interesting to see how T is going to react to his childhood friend Diz being dead, who he's known ever since Little League. Especially because the fact T didn't want to lose any more BMF members to this war. Also, once Blaze finds out Henri didn't listen to him, he will most likely end his arrangement with Henri and cut her off, starting a daughter versus father war in the process. And I think Blaze will then make an alliance with BMF. T already told Blaze that he has the best work in the state of Michigan and that he would give it to him at a huge discount if he could just make peace. Blaze, seeing T as a son he never had, will make an alliance with T and also try to take him under his wing, making T more proficient in the business model. Also, an alliance with Blaze could make T untouchable in Detroit because of the fact that Blaze pretty much controls the local police force. Keeping in mind when the captain questioned Burke, it was more to find out about what she knew. And as soon as she mentioned the name Henri, the captain suspended her to dead her investigation. So if T is able to make an alliance with Blaze, BMF will have the same type of protection and also possibly given the same opportunity that Henri was given to exclusively supply political events. If Blaze can get that back by letting his people know that Henri's now out of the loop. But as T makes an alliance with Blaze, they will now have a common enemy trying to bring them both down. None other than Bryant, who is no longer a detective after episode 6. But we do know from season 2, episode 1, that he's going to get back into law enforcement at some point because he is who arrested T in St. Louis in 2007. Also keep in mind that the lady from the DEA, who was also part of the arrest in 2007, was briefly introduced in season 2 as part of the investigation into K9. So in order to get revenge for what Henri's done to Kevin, he might have to become a whistleblower. At the same time, there's also a small chance that Blaze could pull the protection from Henri after she disobeyed his orders. But I think it'll be more about cutting her off and taking her position away. But if he did this, it could give Bryant opportunity to take her out. But I think Bryant will turn to either the DEA, who he'll work for later to take down T, or internal affairs so he could expose the whole police force and take down Blaze and Henri. So just as we see T make an alliance with Blaze, it could be short-lived if Bryant becomes a whistleblower. And there you have it. Leave your thoughts, theories, and predictions in the comments.